Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dustin Kircher, and I got my partner here, Ben Dreicer, and we're with MHP Nation. Thanks for joining us today. It's been a while since we've recorded a show. We've been hot and heavy into a couple big projects, and taking the time away for doing the podcast has gone in the back seat. But excited to have our guest Gabe Peterson today. He's a seasoned real estate investor, entrepreneur, and is the host of the Real Estate Investing Club. So he's our first one back after our little hiatus, and we appreciate Gabe coming on. So Gabe is involved in RV parks, mobile parks, and self-storage units. And so we're happy to have a discussion with him and find out more about what he does. So Gabe, thanks for coming on the show.
Nice. Yeah, I'm glad that I didn't know I was kicking off a new season, so I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do. I gave a little synopsis, but I know there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see, I'll take you guys way back. I got started in just real estate in general, probably in like 2014, but I was just doing like, flips and side stuff and wholesales. And I didn't have the balls big enough to actually jump in full time until I think it was the very end of 2020 when I bought my first mobile home park.
Okay.
And it was a small mobile home park here in Washington State. It was 27 sites. We have added a few since then, so I think it's 36 now. But yeah, it kind of lit the fire on me. It made me realize that this stuff works. It was a killer deal looking back at it now. We kind of got lucky, but that showed me the path. And since then, we've been buying mobile home parks, RV parks, and then, like you mentioned, self-storage facilities. I have divested myself from most of the self-storage. We have 3 left because we kind of went full circle. Didn't really go full circle, but I got them at such a steal of a deal that, we fixed them up and we filled them enough to the point where just like, we don't need to do anything else. We've got enough equity here. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's what we do. Mobile home parks, RV parks, self-storage facilities, and been doing it since 2020.
Nice. That's awesome. I know offline we were talking that you are a fan of the longer term RV parks. So give us a little insight into that, and why is it that asset class specifically is one of your favorites?
Yeah. I don't know why, but for some reason, just that has been in terms of volume, that's been the most number of deals that have actually come across my path that have been worth looking into. I really like mobile home parks. I think they're great assets, and I would love to buy more. But for some reason, the ones that I look at, RV parks, have been they've just been better deals. They have more upside, more things that you can do with them. So we've been buying RV parks, and when we got our first one, I thought that there would be very management intensive, because I was picturing myself when I was, 18, 15, 14, going to these RV parks, and you just got people coming in, going out. But the first one we bought was here in Moses Lake in Washington. It was kind of a mix. It had like 9 mobile homes and then 40 something RV spaces. But the RVs, they were long-term and they just stayed there. We quickly realized, one, you can charge more for those sites. I don't know why the market has decided that that's how it should be, but that is the truth. Is generally long-term RV sites they go for a little bit more of a premium than mobile home sites. And also they're a little bit easier to infill, which also means, the obverse of that, the downside is that they're easier. The tenant has an easier time leaving, so you have a little bit more churn. But when you do have that empty space, it's more readily filled through things like Google Ads. It's just easier to fill than it is for a mobile home site. For mobile home, I mean, infill, at least you guys might have the golden key that we just don't understand. But what I've found the easiest way to infill for mobile homes is to actually bring a mobile home in there and then sell it. And that's a process. Sometimes you got to have a contractor crew go in there, flip it, do work, or you got to get some kind of financing to bring in new ones. And it's just a whole thing that you got to do. We were actually I just talked to a financing team to get some, it was Century 21. I think they do some kind of like larger loan program.
21st mortgage. Yep.
Yeah. So we were looking into that, but the point is, for RV parks, long-term stay, it's easier to infill. You can do it with, the tenant is bringing their own house, and you just run some ads, and I mean it's not that easy, but it is a little bit
Yeah.
easier than mobile homes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not wrong. With a mobile
Yeah.
home, with the setup crew, depending on the state, there might be permits involved. There might have to be licensed contractors involved.
The
It's not.
strapping down.
Yeah, and also
and
it's like that was the cost. It's we
yeah.
actually just bought a mobile home in one of our parks, south in San Antonio. We bought a mobile home to bring it in. $10,000 to get the thing set up. You gotta you gotta trench the water line. This one for some reason the water line is offset, but we had to skirt it. We had to do all this stuff. We had to build a deck, and it ended up being $10,000 to get the unit out there ready to sell. And for RVs, it's nothing. They bring it in and you start renting it.
10,000 is not even that bad. What are some of the ones we're having to spend more than that? So
Yeah.
it's a huge expense. People think you just buy the manufactured home and you're done. No, there's a huge expense getting the lot ready and getting it in place, getting the skirting steps, and then depending on the municipality, getting it
Electrical.
signed off. Exactly.
Yeah. Electrical
Yeah.
with the new units, you have 200 amp if you have all electric units, and you know most older parks don't have that, so you got to make sure you upgrade your pedestals. It's fun stuff.
Yeah. This one was kind of a shit show because we bought it, and the guy that was, there was this guy had bought it for a hunting mobile home. Essentially, he had it on this leased land. The land lease ended. The guy didn't want to release to him, so he sold it. So we bought it from him, but it had to go through all these different winding roads, and they ended up running into a bridge. And just like they hit the bridge, and then they just kept driving, and so it scraped the whole top of the roof of the mobile home. So bad. So there's always those small things, small headaches that just kind of accumulate when you're on the mobile home side. But I'm not saying mobile homes. I do love mobile home parks; they are great. But that's just the reason that I also really like long term.
Yeah. So within your RV parks, the long term space, are you purchasing any RVs and then renting them out or reselling them? Are you doing anything of that sort, kind of like what you would do with a mobile home park?
We have not, but that has been. We've talked about it. We have almost bought a couple of our tenants RVs that were going to leave, and they didn't want their RV, so we almost did that, but it didn't work out. And we have been approached by a couple groups who do, especially in Texas, that like the duplex style container homes, to bring them in, rent them out. So far, we've kind of steered clear of owning any of the actual units ourselves and renting them out. But I've seen P&Ls of people who do, and they're crushing it. And so I can't say that's a bad idea, but we haven't done it yet.
Okay.
Yeah. That business model that you're talking about is definitely becoming very popular. The ones that they're saying they'll fill your park for free, they'll put these duplexes in, and then
it's funny
now that we're on that topic, can you give us the terms that they kind of gave you when they proposed this?
So I only had this was just yesterday, and it was a briefish conversation. So they had these duplexes. The retail 75,000 is what they're saying. They'd bring them into the park. We could either buy them ourselves and bring them in, or they would, as I understand it, and I could be misquoting them, they would finance it themselves. They would bring it in. We would be responsible for the management. They would be responsible for the unit. And then we would get 35%. And this is a qualification that I kind of need to understand a little bit better. As I heard it, it was 35% of gross rent as the rent to us. Now, I don't know if it might be net rent. It might be net. It might be gross. I don't remember specifically. If it is net, it would really depend. Like, does that include the lot rent? I don't know. There's a lot of questions that kind of popped into my mind, but the gist was 35%. I think it was gross rent comes to us, and then we also get 35% when they sell. And they were saying that you buy it for 75, and then they've been able to sell it for double, 150 once they're filled up. I don't know if that's true, but that's what we were told.
Yeah. It sounds like pretty similar conversations.
Almost identical.
Yeah, I've had those conversations too.
Yeah.
And then the one upside to them, to add a little bit of color to it, that sale of those 150 that they were talking about, we were understanding that they can find investors, but because these are like personal property in a park, they could be depreciated over like a 5-year period. So investors have very good potential depreciation on the front end for these type of investments,
Yep.
even if it's
Got
on.
it.
So they're able to get them, sell them at least because they have investors that need that depreciation and need it fast.
Have you guys done this? Have you gone down the path?
We haven't.
We're
We've
deep in
explored it.
conversations.
Yeah.
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 Huh. Yeah, it's
Yep.
interesting. I know we actually almost bought a park down in Texas. And
Texas is a hot spot for it, I feel like.
yeah, and the guy that we were going to buy it from, the park was just really bad shape, but it had a lot of units. I think it was like 70 or 80 units. But we were getting it for just low, steal of a deal. We ended up buying something else, but we realized later on that this guy that we were speaking with ended up doing this model. And it was in kind of the Abilene area, which is, really hot with those,
Oh yeah,
with
like
like
own
man
property
camp.
there. Yep.
Yeah. And evidently they brought 30 of these duplexes in, rented each site out for $1,300, and they filled them up. So that's $40,000 a month, which is, I think we originally, or when we were negotiating, we got it down to like, I want to say 450 or 500,000 for the acquisition.
Okay.
So I mean, good
That
on
would have been pretty
you, is
good.
all I have to say.
There's
Could have
definitely a
looked at
time
it.
and a place for that business model. There's no doubt about it. For the
Yeah.
right market, it could be an incredible way to kind of.
Yeah, I think with the home affordability issues throughout the nation, I think it's just going to be a model that does actually start to grow. And there's investors that are needing the write-offs, then yeah, it makes sense. And if we still have the 100% depreciation for a while, then yeah, it's a
My,
pretty good
my
business
only
plan.
reservation is these duplexes. I was looking at them, and it's like my college dorm. It's like,
Bare bones.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like 100, it's
Yeah.
like 180 square feet or something. Like, really small.
Yeah.
And I just,
Yep.
160
I don't-
each side. It's a 320 foot, it's a 40-foot container, 40 by 80 or 4 by 8.
Yeah.
So 320 plus your walls, like you said, it's under 160 per side. So they're micro, like you
Oh
said,
yeah.
they're a dorm.
I mean, they
yeah,
stay under your
Workforce emergency housing,
tiny
essentially.
home. Yeah.
right.
And they
Smaller.
stay under the tiny home, under the 400 square feet. So then permitting and regulations aren't caught up to that yet. It'll be
Mm,
interesting if, regulations start getting put in place for even tiny home stuff. But Texas is pretty lenient in itself, with what they allow to be put down and what is needed.
yeah.
Like
The
California
question
or
is like,
Washington is like, is that still gonna slide?
But they're
and how
classifying them
much
as an
demand
apartment.
is there out there for that type of product? It's like, I don't know. I just had a guy on my podcast who does right by the room, and he buys these like 3-4 bed houses, turns them into 10 beds, and he's crushing it, doing renting every single one out. So these are tiny units that people are willing to live in.
Yeah.
But that makes sense when you're downtown in a major metro, not a lot of inventory, people need a space to live.
Yeah.
Most of these parks that we're talking about are rural. Do people actually want to live in a 160 square foot house in rural Texas? I don't know. That's
Yeah. It's either workforce housing or, like you said, it's in a busier metropolitan area that housing is a shortage or really expensive. And um, yeah, it's with everything with real estate, right? I think it's location based. Everything is locations.
yeah.
But
Yeah, I would see it either as workforce or if they're trying to serve an underserved population like the homeless or kids aging out of foster care, any of the stuff that we've talked about that these group homes are created
yeah,
for. That's a good model because the government or these different organizations have money to house people, and it's like it could be an affordable option and getting
Yeah.
people independent. But
Yeah.
I don't want to live there.
For sure.
yeah,
We'll let you guys know if we end up reaching out to these guys.
yeah. Well, yeah, we'll stay in touch because yeah, we're same thing. Multiple different people, different options out there. So, but
Mhm.
yeah, cool. So, how many RV parks are you currently managing right now?
Right now we got five,
Okay,
five RVs, and then 4 self storage.
okay. And are they all in one general area, or are you kind of all over?
No, they're. I wish they were all in one area, but we started buying in Washington, and we got some killer deals there in Eastern Washington, and then
Okay.
just couldn't find another good deal. It's like we were just pounding the pavement and just it's there was a window there. People got in, got some good deals, and now Washington mobile home parks, RV parks are through the roof. And I mean, I've looked, but I haven't found one. But the other ones are in mostly Texas, Indiana. I used to own in Arkansas, but sold that
Okay.
one. Yeah, but that's it. Texas, Indiana, and Washington.
Nice. Where in Arkansas did you own?
Hot Springs. Would not recommend
Okay.
it.
No, that's funny. I've looked at an RV park out there, more of like RV park campground in Hot Springs, I think it
Mm,
was.
yeah.
Yeah, we own two parks in right outside of Little Rock, Arkansas,
Oh, okay.
but mobile home parks. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This was a Hot Springs was actually that was a self storage facility, and the reason it wasn't a good idea is just there is a lot of property crime in that area, and so it was a story unto itself. We were it was supposed to be a flip, and I just bought it. It was dirt cheap. Bought it, did some
Hmm.
work, and then leased stuff a little bit, and then sold it. But the day we were closing, just this group came in, broke every single door. Literally, just took one of
Oh,
those like
geez.
hacksaws and just went through
Yeah.
every single door. And I'm not kidding. It was like we were supposed to close on a Wednesday, and I got the call on Sunday that this had happened, and I was just like, God damn it! So,
Wow.
yeah, forever I will never buy in Hot Springs since from that.
Huh, that's interesting. That's
Yeah, that's
so. So, what's your business look like now? Do you have partners? Do you have team members? What's the kind of structure of your business?
Yeah, I mean, so the parks have on-site property management. Well, mostly on-site. One uh, property manager manages both the ones out in Washington.
Okay.
So we have the property managers, and then I have kind of an admin that helps with all the back end stuff. Obviously, bookkeeper, accountant, um, and then I do most of the marketing and acquisitions. And then for partners, I mean, I have partners in different deals, um, but it just really depends on the deal. I only brought in money for one deal so far, and so I went in one of the self storage facilities. I brought in a capital partner. Outside of that, it hasn't. It's just been our own money.
Okay.
awesome. Yeah,
What did you do before you got into the real estate? I don't think we really touched base on that.
I was in corporate. I worked at a management consultant company. We went mostly in Seattle, so I was out at Microsoft, and
Hmm.
well, it was
Makes
mostly
sense.
Microsoft is where I was. But yeah, I did not like that. It was really just the driving. I had to drive like an hour and a half morning and night, and I just after a while I couldn't handle it. So I was always looking for that thing to get
Yeah.
me out of it, and it ended up being real estate.
Yeah.
are you actively prospecting for deals right now too?
Yes, yeah, well, I'm still looking. We don't have like any mailer campaigns out, but I'm brokers reach out to me, and I'm still underwriting deals. I haven't. The last one we closed was in July, and so we're not closing like a ton like every month, but
Yeah.
slowly but surely.
Like you said, they're harder and harder to come by too, I think in all markets. So yeah, it is getting tough. It's an asset class that just like self-storage, right? There's very few of them around, and
Mhm.
although self-storage, there's new ones being built. There's very few RV parks and even less mobile parks being built. So it's getting tough, right? And
Yeah,
the secret's out. I think it's been out for a while that it's one of the better asset classes. So
yeah, yeah. It's difficult, especially if you're well, I don't know. I just feel like, well, I mean, I've been a seller before, so you always have unrealistic expectations. I mean, it's hard as a seller not to want top dollar for your property, but when I'm looking at these, I always, if you've had a really good deal in the past, like my first couple of deals were just home runs, and I always reference those deals when I'm looking at deals now, and I shouldn't be because I'm not going to get, it was like on paper, it was like a 14 cap or something like that. It was like, on close,
oh
not
yeah,
on pro forma. And so, it kind of ruined me for future deals. I'm still looking for deals, but I need to reset expectations and go in at a reasonable cap rate, and then work the model. Get
Yeah.
force appreciation, that kind of stuff.
The silver
Yeah.
lining is that you've probably only gotten into good deals. You're picky, so you're only getting stuff that are smart deals. You can sleep at night, which is there's a lot of value there, I think.
Hmm.
That is the benefit. Yeah, they have been good deals so far.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. Before buying mobile home parks and whatever, used to flip homes and do all
Mm.
that. And then I used to buy in quite a few in a one concentrated area. And it's like, well, now I'm making the market. And so I'm just kind of shoot myself in the foot when I'm trying to buy these at the same price. You can't, but it happens. I, so I'm curious. You in the beginning of the show, you had mentioned that I think your first park, it was 27 sites, and you had brought it up to 36 sites currently. Um, as we know that's a process. So I'm curious, how did those dealings go? And it was in Washington, which Washington, like California, is somewhat harder to expand and build with all the permitting. So I'm curious, how did that look for you, and uh, was there
Yeah,
what
yeah.
difficulties you had to
How
deal
did
with?
it go? So
Yeah.
it was easier because we bought it at 27, but it had already basically there had already been planned for these additional sites, and there was even some
Okay.
some things that was like some of them had electrical pedestals that they didn't have
Mm.
sewer, and so we ended up just having to bring in one of the utilities. So we didn't really have to go to the local government and ask for permission or anything like that because it was already part of the plan.
Okay.
So it went really well. We did this particular park. It's only taking up half the lot, and it's in an area that really does need additional housing. And so we have drawn up, plans and gone to the city council meetings and like tried to get them to approve us to double the size of the park, and they just will not do it. And it's really frustrating because I feel like it's needed and they just don't want it. And I mean, the reason they give us is that I don't know how municipal water works, but they say that they don't have enough water essentially. And I hear that and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. I just don't, that doesn't sound right. And so we haven't been approved to truly double the footprint of this park, which it definitely could do. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's been our kind of frustration there with that town.
Yeah. Yeah, dealing with municipalities is one of the tougher things to deal with, right? Ben's got the background with that stuff, but it's
Have
Oh,
you
yeah.
have you
It's
guys done
always
a lot of development to your parks?
we're in the process. I'm a general contractor here in Los Angeles
Hmm.
too, but yeah, all of these parks, every park is a different story. Every municipality, you would think some smaller cities are going to be a little bit more easygoing and want development where they put a fork in everything that you see, and then you see some other bigger cities that you thought might be a little bit more challenging that maybe are help us out a little bit more. And then every city is different, who they want. Like some parks, we have to use a licensed electrician and plumber to do the hookups. Other ones, we can just have the local municipality. As long as it's done, they have an inspector, they look, it's good. So yeah, I would say the municipalities are always a challenging thing and an important thing to do a lot of as much due diligence as you possibly can at the beginning. If
Yeah,
yeah.
especially if you have high stakes, if you're planning to actually do work, you need to talk with them. You need to make sure that whatever your plans are is feasible. And like you
yeah,
said, if you went into that deal thinking that you were going to build these 26 extra units because you have the land, and then you're like unpleasantly surprised
yeah.
because
Well, yeah, a
you
lot of deals
can't.
that I'm looking at, they today. In fact, I looked at one today that was it was like the in going in cap rate was like 2.5 or something like that because they said you can build so many units out there. It wasn't
Yeah.
platted. They didn't have like permission. It's just they're saying you can do it. Like it's a potential. I'm looking at that like you don't know that. Like you haven't gone to the city. You don't have approval. And so
Yeah.
I don't know. Just it's ridiculous.
It's funny you say. I was just about to say that. I've looked at so many more on the RV park side deals that they're like, oh, well, you have an additional 20 acres to expand. Yeah, but you're not going to get approval most likely for it. And if you do, the costs and the economics behind it most of the time don't make sense. And so it's like, yeah, you're trying to sell this thing as a low entry cap and projecting that a pro forma is going to be the way that you're going to make money on this thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't think so.
When you guys have done development, what do you like underwrite like price per pad that you're doing for construction work?
Take that, Ben.
Look, for other projects, it's probably closer to the $50,000. That's like the realistic number. That's way high. That's very high.
Wait,
But
no, I'm just talking about building a site. So, bringing in utilities, graveling, getting permits, that kind of stuff. So you got a plot of land, you're adding 20 sites. Or let's say you buy a RV park, it has 20 sites, and you're going to add 20 more. What would you, on average, I know it depends, where you're doing this kind of stuff, but what would you budget per additional site that you're adding to a park? 50,000, that seems really high.
30,000 if you want to be a little bit. That's just me and my conservative. Look, we're buying all our parks that we've purchased. We've purchased for I think our average is like 10 to 15,000 per pad. So
Yeah, okay.
the development is not always like Dustin says, it's oftentimes doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
But I
okay.
think those after everything is said and done, and then you look at permitting fees and some plan check fees and some jurisdictions, it gets
Yeah.
juicy quickly.
Yeah.
So it's just like you just got to be very careful just to do the work. Like the plumbing lines and the gravel and all that is not, sometimes you can probably get it done for pretty affordable.
Mm.
And then maybe you're at your $10,000 a pad or 15,000 to actually do the work, especially if you have a good crew with a backhoe or excavator and they're doing that and they're laying the lines too, and you can use the same trench for multiple of the utilities. But have you actually quoted out to do a brand new or like some
Brand new? No, we haven't. Like scratch, we haven't done anything from scratch. And we brought in utilities, but nothing from scratch.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of variables to it, as you know, right? And that's where 20,000 to 50,000 is somewhat realistic, right? It just depends on where you're at and what jurisdictions you're working with too. So it's
Makes you realize. I mean, it makes sense why people want to buy versus build. I can buy for something for a lot cheaper than 50,000. That's for sure.
I can tell you we have one RV park. The amount of work for that one RV park is more than our 4 or 5 other mobile home parks. Just because it's in California.
Mm.
2, we're on private. We have a septic and
Utilities.
we have septic and well.
Mm.
And the testing requirements is a California Water Board.
Oh, yeah.
We have a seller's permit. There's so much reporting requirements. It's I guess that's a perfect segue into the next question. Your parks, are they on city water, city sewer? Are they labor intensive? Are they reporting intensive? Because we have a lot of to-dos on our to-do list on a quarterly monthly basis.
In California.
California,
we have one park that's septic sewer or septic well, and that we do have to do testing and stuff for the well. It's Eastern Washington, so it's a little bit more kind of a red area. Washington's a blue state, but it's a red area of this of the state. So the reporting's not too bad. The septics. So I'm not like against septics, but we've had septics go out, and based on the current especially this particular county, the current regulations that you have to do for these new septic systems with I don't know the words, but anyways, it turned out to be $40,000 to replace the stupid septic, and that was more than I thought it was going to be. And so septics, I think I'm not like afraid of them, but now when I underwrite for parks with septic tanks, even if the current owner is only pumping them, once a year or something like that, that's all they're doing. And that's the only thing on their P&L, on their expense line. It just shows that one pump. I still budget additional money, $5,000 a year, just for the fact that they will eventually fail, and you need to have $40,000 in your pocket to replace those. But yeah, to your answer, some of them are, city water, city sewer. Some of them are city water, septic, and then we have one well and septic.
Are you doing like weekly meetings with your managers? How are you kind of like keeping track, and like how are you overseeing all your different projects?
Yeah, it really depends on the manager, on the situation. We have our property manager here in Washington for the 2 parks there. She's a rock star. She crushes it, and we just do every other week we meet with her. And then for a couple of the other property managers, we meet weekly. Just one quick meeting just to see how the park's going, what issues are there, yada yada. For the self-storage, it's actually once a month. It's just we do a performance review. We have a third-party property management company that we work with, and I do a performance review with them. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Nice. Yeah.
Set it up in a very scalable way, and giving you, it sounds like you have time.
Yeah. It's if you can get the right people in place, I feel like it turns into the thing that you wanted it to be, like the type of investment that you wanted. I have, with that said, we have gone through bad property managers, and that, I'm sure you guys have that experience. It's a nightmare. It makes the entire experience unenjoyable. But once you get those good, the good team members in place, then everything seems, it works a lot better, and it's more enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the portfolio is stabilized for the most part, or are there any big projects you have at any of these, or these are all performing assets?
Yeah, they're mostly stabilized. One of them, the most recent one we bought, we're still doing the strategy on all of them. Not really all of them. There's 2 of them that we really can't do anything additional to, outside of, there are some small things we could do, but they're mostly, you can't really improve them. But the other ones are, I would say they're all stabilized in the sense that they are cash flowing and producing income. But most of them we're still executing some type of strategy. One of them, we're doing a lot of infill. We're going to expand it because there's a lot of space. This one, we actually do know that we can expand it. And nice. So we do have that approval. We're going to be expanding it, adding in 30 additional sites. The other one, we bought it with seller financing. And we're just doing a lot of infill, and we're having really, really good success with Google ads on that park. And so we've been consistently, 3 to 4 spaces a month. We've been able to infill there. And that one we actually just got what was that?
3 to 4 long-term RV people via Google ad per month.
Yeah. And that one, we actually just signed a tower lease on. We had a tower company reach out to us to do a cell tower, and so that was a new experience for us. And so we just signed that lease. They haven't built yet, so we don't know if it's an actual thing, but we did sign it, and they did get approval from one of the big carriers. So hopefully that turns into something.
And what are they offering you, and how long?
It's $1,100 a month. But as I understand it, and I don't, I'm not an expert at all in tower leases, but as I understand it, once you get the lease working, once the tower's built and the money's coming in, you can sell them for like 20 to 25x annual income. Because I guess there's funds out there that bet on the 50-year placement, and they're just, I don't know if that's true, but that's what we've been told.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. Look, if it's not, that's a great, why not?
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Some management.
Yeah. So most of the projects, when you or most of your parks, when you're looking to acquire, are you looking for more stabilized, or you're looking for something that you can actually infill?
No, I don't have enough money just to look for stabilized.
Yeah.
I'm looking for value add. I want, I want to be able to do infill or improve operations, or fix marketing, whatever the issue that they have. I want to be able to fix it. Get that NOI going up and benefit.
Yeah, it's definitely where. Oh God.
No, go for it, Dustin. You're on.
I was gonna say it's definitely what the only deals I've seen are making sense out there for sure. And the good thing though about it is I think a lot of people shy away from it. Are you kind of seeing the same thing?
Um, I'm not. You never really know, I guess, because when we buy it, we don't know how many other people are out there talking to them.
Oh,
But uh, I mean, I would assume because yeah, if it's a stabilized deal, my problem with stabilized deals is that they have their P&L and you're going in at this aggressive cap rate, and then but you don't know until you actually are running this property whether you're going to be able to replicate that P&L. And
yeah,
so I just don't want to. I don't want to take that chance. I want to see a problem and I want to know that I can fix that problem and then go in there and do that. Thinking that for me personally, thinking that I can just get into a deal, even if it's sold at like a 10 cap, if I don't see a way to improve the operations or something about the property, I'm not as interested in the deal because I don't know that I can reproduce exactly what they're doing there.
yep,
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I don't think we've heard anybody kind of articulate that the stabilize, like, you think you want to be able to believe that you're going to hit their same numbers. But at like now being in as many deals as we have been, you're right. You're probably not going to be able to hit the numbers that they're putting, even if it's an actual profit and loss from last year, because you never know what they're hiding or what skeletons are in the closet until it's your baby. Now to
Yeah.
kind of figure
Yeah,
this
and a lot
out.
of them, especially when it comes down to management, that's the one that I've seen the biggest variance between or delta between like my own experience and what
hmm
other people what their P&L says. Like they have, $400 a month in there for property management or $500, and they might be able to achieve that. Maybe they have this relationship with this person that's going out there and managing. I have not had success finding somebody who will do a good job at a property for less than like $1,500 a month. It's just I don't know. Maybe we're doing something wrong, but $500. When I see these P&Ls and they just have such a low property management fee, I just can't replicate that.
yeah. It's a good point because like even when we're underwriting a deal, that first year, our what I'm doing is putting a higher overhead cost or a cost of operations because you can't replicate it. You don't know. And then a lot of times you're seeing is, maybe that person has a relationship with that property manager. And then now a new person comes in and you're not getting that same deal. So
Yeah,
it's, it is very interesting. We don't like the stabilized ones either. One, it's really hard to even get them to pencil out and make sense unless you got some really cheap money. But yeah, so we're in the same boat as you on that side for sure.
yeah,
I would say I love the stabilized deals. We just can't afford to find the ones that pencil out properly for us. I would love for us
yeah,
to just walk into a deal
yeah.
and just
That's another way to put it. It would be great to buy a stabilized deal. I just can't find it.
Yeah, and the sellers know what they have, and these funds know the fund. They're really kind of meant for funds, like just like I said, have cheap money and just want to plug some capital into something and have it start operating from day one. They
Yeah.
don't want to deal with the infill and the rehabbing of units and stuff like that.
Yeah. Do you guys raise money for your deals, or are you guys self funded?
No, yeah, we raise capital. Yep.
Yeah. And is that adds another layer of at least for me, it adds a huge layer of stress. Just like
Yeah.
whenever you're creating the pro forma, you're getting your projections, the investor returns. It's always based on assumptions. You never actually know, but you do your
Mhm.
best to come up with a number that you feel like you can really support. And just having that additional, I don't know, layer of stress is always difficult, especially like if you're looking at a pro forma or a stabilized deal. It's just not something I can handle.
Yeah. No, it is. That is probably the most stress is just making sure you're obtaining what you are projecting for your investors, right? And you know, if we're
well,
not
it's
hitting a
twofold. Is
number or
one,
raising the capital, and
raising
then
the capital is number one. Two, now that you're in the deal, now like we had our quarterly report with investors and
Yep.
those, and then the K1s, especially when there's a lot of investors, and that comes with its own headaches. And you have 20 different people bothering you for different things, and they need this, and their accountant needs this, and you have unneeded pressure for something that has nothing to do with operations. Now you're just dealing with, so yes, dealing with investors can be a headache at times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's why stabilized deals are not fun, because you really gotta hit those numbers if you're getting the investors in there.
Yep. Yeah. So it sounds like you're self-funding. Are you doing commercial lending? It sounded like you did one seller financing. Yeah. What's kind of your acquisition model been like?
Well, I do raise money, so I'm not 100% self-funded, but I haven't. Most of them I've been able to do with partner, like the partners bring in money,
Okay.
and then yeah, I also raise money. It's just not something I would prefer to do. And the reason we've been able to do that is we've been pretty much 100% successful in getting seller finance deals. Um,
Nice.
One deal has not been. I've had to go to a bank and get a bank loan, but everything else has been seller financed. One of them we got 2.6% interest, which was awesome. And
Jeez.
yeah,
On the seller, 2.6.
yeah.
Wow. That's good.
So I've been pretty good at negotiating seller financing.
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
cool. What kind of terms are you normally putting on there? Are you doing like balloons and amortizations? What are you normally going for?
Uh, yeah. I mean, they really range. It really depends on the deal. One of them, we have a 20-year balloon with 5% interest, but we paid more than we would have normally for the deal,
Hmm.
interest only. Another one is just really low interest. It's amortized over 11 years, but it's really low interest. It's not interest only. There's no balloon. It's just amortized over 11 years flat. Um, the other couple, it was a 5-year balloon, but it was a 3-year balloon, but they gave me a 3-year extension. This was last year. They, like the money coming in and just gave me the extension. And that was for, have I gone out? Oh, and then the other one, we bought it with seller financing. And then it had a 2 or 3-year balloon. I can't remember which one. And then we refinanced when that balloon period came up.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Almost identical. We only have one deal that we closed without seller financing
Yeah.
out of all of them.
Yeah, and it's not fun. I like that. It was a mobile home park in Austin, or in San Antonio, and it was going through that bank was just a nightmare. I don't know if all deals are like that, but it was not fun. I'm definitely glad that I've been able to do seller financing up to this point.
Yeah. The process is a whole lot easier. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what has been some of the challenges that you've faced in your ownerships of mobile home parks, or I'm sorry, RV parks?
I already mentioned property management. That was a really
Yeah.
big challenge, actually, because, and I think one thing a lesson learned from that experience was we got this property manager, and then a couple months in, we realized that it wasn't quite working out, but we pushed to make it work, and that was a mistake. Once you realize that it's not working, you should just cut the cord and find somebody else. But we pushed to make it work, and it just got worse. It was a bad situation. And so, that was a big lesson, was property management. That was one of the things that we did, but now we got a good person in there, and she's crushing it. And so,
Nice.
another lesson, let's see, what are the other lessons? I guess how effective Google ads are for infill for RV parks. They're really, really effective, and I didn't realize they would be that effective. I had done Google ads in other things that I've done in the past, and I just didn't think it would be that effective, and it is. So that was the challenge. There was was going from, we had high vacancy at a park that we bought. Got good terms and everything, seller finance, but it was really high vacancy, and we were figuring out how we were going to infill, and Google ads worked really well. And then and this isn't mobile home RV, but just on the self-storage side, a big lesson or a big struggle that I've dealt with, and is property crime and people breaking into units. And I mentioned that one earlier, but it's also happened at another facility. And the lesson for this, anybody out there who's interested in self storage, do not buy. Make sure when you're buying that the metro is not prone to property crime, and that specific block that you're buying on is not prone to property crime. Call the cops, the police station, ask about where you get calls. Is this area? Do you get a lot of calls from this area? Really do your due diligence specifically on property crime for that area. And also only buy big facilities. I would, it's always 10x, go big. I like that in general, but specifically for storage, smaller facilities can't support on-site management. They can't support anybody being on site. And if you don't have that person there, people are going to come in, they're going to break things, and it's just not good. So those are some lessons or some struggles we've dealt with.
So how many spaces are you kind of looking for? What's your bare minimum of spaces on an RV park that you look at now?
I mean, that will really depend. If I found a park downtown Seattle, I'd buy it for 10 spaces. But it just needs to support a property manager. It needs to be able to support that, $1,500 a month to a good, solid property manager that we can pay. And then it needs to spit out some cash flow. $3,000 a month is minimum. I don't really want to do anything less than that. And there needs to be a good, plan to get to where we're trying to go. But in terms of like the minimum size, I don't know. I've been looking at a lot of like 40 to 70 site ranges. Everything over that, it seems to be a little bit too priced too aggressively. Everything under that doesn't. I look at their P&Ls and I'm like, I can't fix that. You can't support property management or whatever it is. So around that range usually is what I'm looking at.
Yeah,
it's definitely a sweet spot because you don't have the big funds also competing when they have we only buy 100 plus. Now all the 100 plus ones are just artificially high, because the cap rate is compressed because the boys are.
I've seen that. I can't remember what site it was, but I went on one of those like just your it's like Crexy or LoopNet for RV parks, and I can't RV parks, and I can't remember which one it was, but like all the parks on that site were 5 caps, and who is buying an RV park at a 5 cap? Like, I don't get it. It's I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think a lot of the hotel brands are jumping into the RV park world. More like the RV park resorts styles.
The ones with like the water slides and
like the Hiltons and Marriotts are now purchasing these parks, which is pretty interesting.
Really, I did not know that. That is interesting.
Yeah, and they've I think it's the Marriott group just opened up their brand new build, like ground up. That was in.
I would like to see that. I'm curious what that kind of money will like. Well, what do they do? I'm curious. I'm curious how
it's straight glamping for sure.
Yeah.
Super nice rec rooms, really nice restaurants. All the amenities you can think of. I mean, it's just an outdoor hotel of theirs, basically.
You bring your hotel room.
Yeah. So it is very interesting, but I think more people like that are getting into it.
Do you know what their rates are? Like, what's their nightlies for these kind of places?
No, I didn't look that up. Yeah. I'm trying to remember where it was located. It was Midwest somewhere. So it was, but there's somebody just released a report and it showed that the Hilton Group had just purchased 2 big RV operations. They're probably going to go in there and just revamp those things. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I would feel like that's a good sign for the industry. If Hilton, they have a huge research team. They know where demand is. And I'm sure they looked at RV and were like, all right, there's money. Let's go for it.
Yeah, it's still one of the it's one of the more affordable vacationing options, I guess you would say, out there, right? And if the economy or the country is going to more affordable options. The things are costing a whole lot more now. So maybe, yeah, I'm pretty sure they do enough R&D that they understand the market.
Yeah, for sure.
I got
um,
a little off topic. I know you have your own podcast, and it seems like you're interviewing other real estate entrepreneurs almost on a weekly basis. From your perspective, over 2025, 2026, what real estate sectors do you think are the hottest?
Mm,
Do you have any shiny object syndrome? Is there some things that you've seen that come across? You're like, ooh, maybe I want to dip my toes in this
yeah.
playground,
Yeah.
especially because you're talking to a wide variety. We're just talking to mobile home and RV people
Mm,
primarily. So I would love to hear your perspective on
mm.
what you think where the market is. Where's the low-hanging fruit? What's the shiny objects right now?
Yeah. I really try hard to keep myself on the straight and narrow because I do have that problem. The shiny object self storage was my shiny object. I was in mobile home RV and I was like, let's go to self storage. I'm glad I did. I like self storage, but I really, you got to learn a whole. Each asset has its own
yeah.
strategies and its own thing that you got to do. So I try not to have a shiny object. But with that said, I do, at my podcast, we go across every different spectrum. We've got guys that flip farms. We've got guys that, what unit you can think about it, we'll do it. So it is interesting to hear them all. I think the one that has been cropping up more often is what I mentioned earlier, the rent by the room. So people are buying these 4,000 plus square foot houses in very, very dense areas, Seattle's, Austin's, whatever. And they're putting 10 rooms into these houses, where they have originally 3 rooms or 4 rooms. They're putting 10 of them into there and renting them out individually by the room. And they're seem to be doing really well. They're able to, get high occupancy and they rent them out. He actually gave me a statistic. I think it was, I want to say 65% of the studio rate is what they rent out the individual efficiency apartments for, the individual rooms. And it means that you buy a house that normally could rent out for $4,000 and now it can rent out for like $9,000-$10,000. So that's an interesting strategy. STR, short-term rentals are always, my wife and I have almost bought multiple short-term rentals, but we haven't pulled the trigger yet. And it's always interesting to hear those guys on the show. Man, multifamily is definitely not hot, I would say. People are not not hot there. I did have a guy on who had an interesting strategy where they are going to multifamily apartments and then they're doing subleasing, a macro scale subleasing for multifamily with the intention of renting them out short term. And so they're going to 100 unit multifamily complex saying, hey, can I rent 10 rooms from you and sublease them on Airbnb? And that's kind of, you're not buying the asset. So it's not truly, you're not buying real estate, but it's still, they're operating short-term rentals out of these multifamily complexes. And it's, it's an interesting strategy. I thought was pretty cool. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. It is interesting. It's like at some point, mobile parks, RV parks are going to dry up. There's not enough assets for them or units. So what is like the next thing? We've heard the group or the multi-room, whatever, pad split type, whatever operations. It's who knows? I mean, we're going to a different market, different economy, and I think the affordability aspects are going to really come in play. But
I always get even worse in terms of like the disparity of wealth. I have no problem with capitalism. I think it's the best system that we have so far, but there definitely is going to be a problem coming up when AI, it really is going to, I feel like it's going to feed the wealth up. And see what happens. I feel like that will, the affordability is going to be a bigger issue in the future, and not less of an issue. So we'll see.
Yeah. And then that's the perfect. Sorry, Dustin.
Go for it.
Or AI. I know you talked before the show a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit how you're using AI in your business, and if you're using AI, and maybe it's not this specifically AI, but automations, and how are you as efficient as you are? Because if anybody well, one, you're interviewing consistently, you're putting out great content, great quality videos too. So if you can talk about a little bit about your AI and how you use it in your business, and then maybe even the social media a little bit too.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a huge AI fanboy, that's for sure. I got a subscription to all of them. You know, I got X, Gemini, Claude, Google or ChatGPT, Perplexity. Yeah, they all do something, you know, individual, unique things, and I'm a big fan. But in terms of how am I applying it to the actual business, I mean, there's the standard like use it for marketing stuff, you know, content creation for your website, creating images for ads, yada yada. It's really good at that. Perplexity I use a lot for deep research. So I actually was just testing out if it could find me best on market deals. Just a couple of days ago, I did this, and it did come up with a pretty good list of deals that I still need to reach out to. But Perplexity is really good for deep research. You do have to kind of finesse the prompts that you give it. You have to be very specific about what kind of return you want. But yeah, doing research for Perplexity. Claude I use a lot for my podcast. You know, all of the description, you just feed the transcript of the podcast in there, and it'll just shoot out the description and the title. And then there's one called Pixels that we use for the actual thumbnail. And I use I've do a lot with like website stuff, and so I'm looking at my other screen. It has all my AI tools. I use Replit, Lovable, and Bolt for anything when I'm like creating something. I tried to use Replit to build me a tool that would find me deals that other people have not touched. And so there's like a lot of self-storage facilities out there that don't, you know, they're not zoned correctly, and they don't pop up in, you know, if you go into Crexy, it's not going to pop up as a self-storage facility. It doesn't, like, they don't have a Google presence, so you don't search, you search self-storage, it's not going to pop up. And so they really haven't been hounded by all the investors that have been hounding all these other facilities. But you got to find them, and that's the hard part. And so I tried to use Replit to scan Google images and then pull out parcels that looked like I tried this for mobile home parks, RV parks, and self-storage facilities. I got it to like almost to the point where it would be useful. And then I kind of put that project aside, but I do feel like that is something that has a little potential there. And Replit is my favorite app to make apps. It does a really good job of like making apps. Nice. And then Bolt I use for any website. You know, you give it a prompt and it'll throw up a website, a great looking website, really quickly. So if you don't have a website for any of your parks or any, you know, even your business, you just go there, prompt it, and it'll spit you one out pretty quickly.
Wow, your website's really nice, by the way, for your podcast.
No, thank you. Yeah, that was before AI. I built that myself.
Nice. Well, Gabe, we're approaching about an hour with you, or maybe it's already been over an hour. It's gone pretty quickly, so I appreciate you coming on the show. Is there anything else you want to talk about or mention before we jump off here?
No, I mean, for anybody who's listening to this podcast, I say this on my own podcast, and I just feel like it's a very pertinent or important subject to reiterate. If you haven't gotten your first deal done yet, go out there and just get it done. 95% of the guys that come on my show have done over 600 episodes, and the vast majority say that they wish they got started sooner. Yeah. And so if you haven't done a deal, just go out there, get a deal done. It could be anything. Do a single family, the smallest deal you can muster. Just get the ball rolling, and 5 years down the line, you're going to be super thankful that you did. So that's my parting message to y'all.
Cool. And how should people reach out to you if they have deals for you to buy or partnering up? Are you partnering up with people and or people that want to give you money to buy property?
Yeah. I love partnering with people. It has to be a good fit, but I do absolutely love partnering with people. We're always, we do raise capital, and so if you guys want to invest in any of my deals, we'd be happy to use your money for good. If you guys want to connect with me, the best way is the podcast website. It's the real estate investing with an ing club.com. So the real estate investing club.com. My email is gabe at the real estate investing club.com. I think that's it.
Cool. Well,
Awesome.
Gabe, thanks again very much for coming on the show and sharing all what you've learned and done over the years. So again, appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me on. It was a blast.
Thank
Awesome.
you.